Look, up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's, well, you know the rest. Hi, I'm Jake Hamilton here on the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank, California, getting ready to talk with the stars and director of Man of Steel about why this is a different Superman movie, but you'll still believe a man can fly. Get ready, this is Jake's Takes.
Goodbye, my son. Our hopes and dreams travel with you.
He'll be an outcast. I'll kill him.
How? He'll be a god to them.
What if a child dreamed of becoming something other than what society had intended? What if a child aspired to something greater?
So if I read right, there was only a few hours between you being told that you were cast as Superman and then the world finding out. So I was curious if that was the case, if you could describe those few hours to me. Like how do you deal with those few hours before you know your life is about to change?
It was all very surreal. And, you know, life didn't change immediately afterwards. It was those sort of, it felt like life was about to change, and it was that moment of going, okay, these are the like last 3 hours of just privacy and being normal, and it feels like secret, like and you're hiding from something. And then it was announced, and you go, okay, well,
nothing?
Yeah, now, yeah, sort of the door hasn't been knocked down. There's not 1,000 people standing outside.
Right.
It's only recently that things have started to really change, and a lot of people, after the commercials have come out, and people come up to me and say, hi, can I grab a photo and stuff, but then it did feel very special when I was given that news, but very surreal. It wasn't really believable, as in I was going, okay, I just got told I'm Superman. It doesn't make much sense. You can't really compute that.
Right. No one ever tells me that, I can't imagine. This must be weird for you. It must be like looking in a mirror, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
strange.
like a blonde mirror.
Exactly, exactly. You know, I feel like this is a nerdy question, but one of my favorite movie monologues of all time is the end of Kill Bill 2.
Right.
And Tarantino writes about the fact that Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the human race. It's a beautiful monologue. So I was wondering, you know, since this is a new Clark Kent, something we've never seen before, what does your Clark Kent say about the human race?
Oh, goodness. He says so much, but it's not like it's a deliberate thing. Clark is just being who he is. He's not trying to be something else. He's not being a parody of anything. Because Clark exists as he exists. He doesn't know why or what or who he is. And it's only when he starts to discover more and more and more, and he stretches himself beyond, and he becomes, you know, this, what we know as Superman, then it's still, he's still Clark. He's still Cal, and he's still Superman when he's got the blue suit on and he's running around doing his stuff. But none of them are a different person.
Right.
It's just one of them doesn't want to be seen or noticed, and the other one doesn't mind.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, you know, it's coming up on 10 years ago that you were actually, I mean, you had Superman 10 years ago. You were, right? I mean, you kind of, you know, the McG.
Nothing's ever known.
Right,
Yeah, the McG thing.
Right, the McG version. So I was wondering, based off what you knew was going to be that film at the time, what was the biggest difference between the Superman you had in 2004 with McG and the Superman that you have now?
I don't know how much I can talk about with that because it would tell storyline stuff, and that's another script which I probably can't talk about. The biggest difference, I'm going to say, easy answer here, my age.
So he was a younger Superman at the time and maybe more susceptible?
Same kind of Superman. It's just I've now got more experience, so I could play it very differently and view the character very differently.
Right. There's been a lot of talk about, you know, and I'm geeking out, a potential Justice League movie.
Right.
If DC, Warner Brothers came to you right now and said, Henry, we're going to do what you want to do. How do you want to map this out? What would be your ideal Justice League situation in terms of bringing in the other guys?
If Warner Brothers were to come to me and say, okay, cool, we're planning this, and how would you want to do it? You'd have to introduce various characters, so it's not just like, bam, the world's full of godlike superheroes. You'd have to find them and introduce them through various movies, and then bring them all together with a major threat that happens. Whether that threat would be Doomsday or Brainiac or whatever, we don't know, but there'd have to be a lot more storyline to have the audience be okay with an introduction to, say, Brainiac or Doomsday.
Absolutely. Mr. Cavill, this is a huge honor for me as a Superman fan. Could I potentially tell my future grandkids that I gave Superman a hug?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is about to happen.
Hug it out, brother.
And my life is complete. An honor, sir. Thank you very much.
My son was in the bus. saw what Clark did.
You're the answer, son. You're the answer to are we alone in the universe?
Can I just keep pretending I'm your son?
You are my son.
So if I read right, this is the third time that you read for Lois Lane. You read it when McGee was doing it, and then Bryan Singer, and then this one.
Yes.
So I was wondering, just based off what you knew about each of those different Lois Lanes, how were they different? Like, what was the biggest difference between this one and the other two that you read for?
I mean, the first one I only read one scene for each of them, and like each project was sort of veiled in secrecy, so I didn't have an idea.
Right.
But I knew that the first one seemed somewhat on par with what you know, a lot of banter, and then the second one, as we know, it was a little more soulful. And this one, I just sort of felt that he really didn't see her as an archetype of a comic book heroine, and I liked that. He really, you know, when he cast me, I knew he was willing to go outside the box a little bit, and so
I thought it was perfect, pitch perfect.
Thank you.
Now the first one you read with Matt Bomer, right? Wasn't he?
I did, yeah.
So how was he? Just did he seem like he would have been great?
Yeah, he was really wonderful.
Excellent.
Yeah,
That's good to know. Good to know. You know, for Lois, you know, both Clark Kent and Superman have so many mysteries about them. She's constantly trying to figure out things about them. So I was wondering, you've worked with with Henry at this point. You know, spent some time with him. What is a mystery about him still that you're still trying to figure out about that guy?
I don't know. Henry's still an enigma to me. Like how he can walk in a room and like, I don't know, how do you exist in that body and still be humble is a real mystery to me. Because he really has a humility about him.
Right.
You don't feel, you know, that he's leading with all that he has going for him.
Right.
So.
I was just out in the hallway and I felt a hand on my back after I interviewed him, and he was walking to the bathroom, and he just stopped, no entourage, and said like, "Hey, thanks for the interview. It was fun. Thank you."
Yeah.
And just like he had no people around him.
No, that's Henry. I mean,
awesome.
he's just
very cool.
Just
very
very
cool.
genuine.
There are a lot of moments for Lois in this movie where it's pretty good that Superman shows up at that right time, pretty opportune. Thinking about all the great moments you've experienced in your life, if you could have one moment in which Superman just could have swooped in and been there, which do you think would have been the best moment?
Oh, wow. I don't know. There's so many times in life where I put my foot in my mouth that somebody should have swooped in, but
just swoop in and say,
yeah,
Amy, stop.
Luckily, I haven't been in too many dangerous situations, so that's good. But if there was a Superman that could keep me from saying something stupid, that would be wonderful.
Man of Steel Part 2.
Yeah, just every time I'm about to say something stupid,
fair enough.
they come in.
I think one of the greatest taglines of all time was the original Superman. I think it was like, "You'll really believe a man can fly," which I thought was just like a great kind of heartwarming thing. Thinking about everything this movie stands for, if they were going to do something similar and say, "You'll really believe," how would you complete that? You'll really believe.
I just like you really believe. Like,
that's awesome.
Because
and
I think, I really, Henry does such a great job embodying this new vulnerable, flawed Superman, and Russell and Kevin and Diane and Lawrence, Michael, the cast is just so committed, and every one of us showed up and wanted to be there, and I really hope that comes across on screen. So.
It definitely does. On behalf of Superman fans everywhere, thank you for this movie. It was incredible. And
you're
you're always so kind to me, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I
sweet.
appreciate it.
And I have to believe that you were sent here for a reason. And even if it takes the rest of your life, you owe it to yourself to find out what that reason is.
How do you find someone who has spent a lifetime covering his tracks? For some, he was a guardian angel.
So obviously, since Christopher Nolan got in the superhero genre, it's changed a little bit, and there are elements of, I feel like, of this film and your performance that maybe couldn't have existed 30 or 35 years ago. So I was wondering, if you'd played Zod in Superman 2 instead of Terrence Stamp, what would be the biggest difference in your performance, do you think?
Wow, well, I think it all starts with the script, you know? I mean, David Goyer really made a very complex character. You know, the original script, the lines are they're very iconic, but they don't have kind of the same depth, really. It just seems like just blind fury and rage and hatred. And so, I don't know, if I was doing that, I probably would have done something very similar to what Terrence Stamp did, probably not as good as he did it,
but just because that's all he was given.
Yeah, that's the script, you know. I mean, everything starts, every good movie starts with a good script,
right?
You know?
Right.
So
I feel like this may be a stupid question, but I've always wondered, whenever you play a villain and you have to be mean to someone, essentially, if you have to do evil to someone, does your relationship with that person affect how easy or how hard it is to do that? Like, if you hated Henry Cavill, would it be easier to be mean to him?
I don't know. I think you always do your best work when you're comfortable with your scene partner. If there's any kind of, you don't want there to be any excess baggage behind the scenes. You just want to, when the scene starts, you want to start at a very neutral place and then have it all just come through in your.
So it's almost the opposite. It's better if you're comfortable and like him, because then you can kind of.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, what you really need to be doing is listening and responding to one another. So if there's any sort of animosity behind the camera, then it's hard to do that.
Right. Now, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of rumors, a lot of excitement about a potential Justice League movie, and I couldn't help but think during the movie how cool it would be to see Zod face off against a different member of the Justice League. If you
Aquaman.
had to, would that be the one? I was going to ask you.
Zod versus Aquaman. No, I've been wondering when they're going to make. Have they ever made an Aquaman movie?
In Entourage, they made the Aquaman movie. Supposedly James Cameron did.
Wow.
But that's the closest I think they've ever come to doing anything for it.
Yeah.
So I would kill to see Aquaman versus Zod.
I mean, ultimately, it would be Zod versus like a bunch of sea creatures
exactly.
that Aquaman talked to.
That's golden.
Wow,
that's gold
like
right there.
Hiding in the corner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like whenever Zod looks at Superman, he sees the fact that he has a sense of morality almost as a weakness. And so I was wondering, in this business, is a lack of morality, is there any benefit to maybe having no morality whatsoever? Could that potentially get you further in this business?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think it would have helped me much. People are always saying that they appreciate that I'm loyal or that I don't screw people over. So I don't know. It's I think like with any other business, there's all different kinds of people and all different kinds of approaches, and it's just up to the individual to decide how they want to conduct themselves.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mr. Shannon, it's truly an honor to sit across from you, man. I could talk to you all day. Like I said, I'm a huge fan. So thanks very much for your time, and I appreciate it. Have a good day.
For others, a ghost who never quite fit in.
You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards. They will race behind you. They will stumble. They will fall. But in time, they will join you in the sun. In time, you will help them accomplish wonders.
So, one of the most powerful scenes in the movie is watching, Ma and Pa Kent have to talk to Clark and tell him that, a tough lesson, which is you can't always be yourself around people. So I was wondering, as parents, what's the toughest lesson you've had to deliver to your kids?
Wow. That's interesting. I only have a daughter, so we don't necessarily have that issue of school come-uppance moments where it could become violent or something like that. What's worth fighting for, literally.
Right.
So I demur to you.
Well,
I mean,
you don't have to teach your kids tough things when they're little. The toughest thing for them is when somebody's finally cruel to them. And you have to explain that the world isn't the way it is in your house all the time. When there's so much love there, so the first time somebody is mean to them, really mean to them, that's a real sit-down lesson for them, because that's foreign. And I always find that's the hardest. That's why whenever you see somebody be nice to your child, you almost like want to adopt them and send them to college, and vice versa. The first time you see another child, be mean to your child, you almost can't hardly rein yourself in.
Power of wanting to be liked and how much that holds sway. Bullying is a real phenomenon, and abuse of power, I think, really is what the original sin is in terms of you have power, how do you use it?
Right.
That's a measure of a man
or
a woman.
Absolutely.
The toughest thing is always explaining the world, because the world is really unexplainable. And when you have to...
It's not about fair, is it?
No, it's not. And so when you talk about tough, it really comes down to when it's confusing. That's the toughest thing, because explaining bad behavior is hard.
I think that you can really get to know a character by looking at the parents and looking where that character came from. So I was wondering, you guys have played some incredible characters throughout your career. If you could get to know one of your character's parents and just to maybe understand that character a little bit better, who would you like to get to know?
Well, I think in this film, I think it would be interesting to see generationally where
the Kents
Jonathan
down the line
and Martha got their mettle from, in terms of we are all standing on the shoulders of the generation before us. So it's a good question. I wish I knew more about my character's history. Didn't dig back that far, I suppose.
Yeah.
We learned on the job very quickly.
Gotcha,
Once the spaceship landed in our barn, we figured it out very quickly.
Yeah.
On the job
There's a
training.
learning curve there a little bit,
I think.
But I wanted to kind of, harp on this idea of telling Clark that he has to hide certain aspects of himself. And I was wondering, whenever you got into this business, was there ever any sort of yourself that you thought, like, I probably shouldn't tell people about that? Like, maybe I should hide hide a little bit. Do you purposely keep a little bit of privacy to yourself?
I remember early on when I was a stage manager, I was bringing all these lights. I was working up there, cable, and I purposely didn't tell the men I was working next to that I was an actor, because there's nothing worse than working next to a pining actor. So I just did my job.
Do you have a new whenever you come across people that are maybe waiters and they're a pining actor, or busboys? Do you have a new respect for people that are out there and kind of doing that, having experienced that yourself?
I look at Diane and I both have a lot of empathy for actors, because we both were on the outside looking in. We both wanted to get our first part. We had no idea that our careers would last the way this one's has, and so I think that we understand the obligation of bringing people along.
You believe your son is safe?
I will find him!
My father believed that if the world found out who I really was, they'd reject me. He was convinced that the world wasn't ready. What do you think?
So, when you think about the Superman movie that came out 35 years ago, I feel like there are elements of that movie that could never be in a movie today, and vice versa. You could never have elements of this movie kind of 35 years ago. So I was wondering, what does that say about us as an audience, that we, how we've evolved, that we couldn't do that,
We do evolve. It's funny. There's certain films, of course, you can see, Apocalypse Now or whatever, where it can be shot yesterday.
Right.
And it's its own thing. But yeah, especially a pop culture thing, I think. Something that is on the nose of pop culture, like the Donner film was. There's aesthetic bits of it that just, it's enjoyable.
Right.
But it's certainly in a time capsule suddenly.
Right. Is there any aspect of that old movie that you love, that you just thought to yourself, there's no way I could do that today?
Well, I think that we really did try and pretend when we actually started shooting the movie that those movies didn't exist.
Right.
And we were trying to stay in a very singular approach, and I never really had this experience where I was like, gosh, we can't do that. I guess a little bit, when you think about from a visual effects standpoint, from the beginning I said, look, Superman can't do anything that's not a visual effect, because he can't fly really on. I mean, we did some wire work, but it was very minimal. Especially when he was with Lois and stuff. We put him on a wire for that stuff. But a lot of it, we knew we couldn't do it. There was no cars on hydraulics,
right.
or because it just doesn't look right.
Right.
And from that standpoint, absolutely, we had no. And also, I think Lois's character is she's a lot more part of the.
For sure.
Part of the story,
Now, as a fan, I was watching it intensely last night, and I felt like I spotted something you can confirm or deny. When Zod crashed into a satellite in space, I felt like I may have seen a logo that said Wayne Enterprises on the satellite.
Well, yes, there is a Wayne Enterprises logo on the satellite.
So, based off of that, my friend, just as a fan, is that just a nod of the hat and a tribute, or is that you saying, hey, these people exist in the same universe?
I'm saying, well, it's a nod in the hat and a tribute, absolutely. I wanted to do something for me that just acknowledges the, amazing partnership and friendship that I have with Chris, and I just wanted that in the movie.
Right.
Somehow. And I think that also, there's a couple other little things in the movie, too, that sort of point to, this potential for, sort of DC expansion. Though I'd say we really our main focus and our main goal was to get Superman to work,
right?
100%. So
absolutely.
And I don't even know what it means, to be honest. Like, what having those things in there,
right?
Other than to say like,
isn't that cool?
Yeah, those things are in there.
Right. Talking about making Superman work, obviously you did. I'm a huge fan of this movie. But there are a lot of directors over the past 20 years that have tried and failed to bring a Superman movie to life.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering, of all those directors that did try and fail, whose version would you have been most interested in seeing?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, of course, the Tim Burton version would have been interesting to see, I think, just because would have been completely different from what we did, I think.
Right.
And so that would have been fun.
Right. Whenever there is a movie like this, there's always going to be just an insane amount of rumors surrounding the entire project.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, what is the rumor that you heard that you just thought that is the most ridiculous thing ever? How is that even happening?
People are convinced that the Justice League movie is like, we're just doing it tomorrow.
Right.
So there's that, which is not ridiculous in the sort of global concept that like it's naive to say that we don't want to but on the other hand just to be that adamant it's pretty
You're
fun.
not helping with the Wayne Enterprises
thing.
I know
I'm not.
Mr. Snyder, seriously, with all my heart as a Superman fan, an honor, man. Thank you so much
my
for
pleasure.
everything. An honor. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
All right, cheers. Thank you.
What's the S stand for?
It's not an S. On my world, it means hope.
Well, here it's an S. How about
Excuse me.